Practice make perfect or does it make progress? Hello and welcome. My name is Dorcas Glader and this is Your Journey Matters. Make it intentional, where we talk about personal development, self awareness, skills acquisition, and the like. And so, if you're interested in becoming a better version of yourself, you are highly recommended to join the family by subscribing, clicking the notification bell, and please do consider leaving me a like for this video. Welcome. So, from our younger years at school, at home, we've always been told practice makes perfect. You hear that being said to children when we're learning maybe an instrument or learning a certain sport, but does it really make perfect? I think why people say that practice makes perfect is because your brain creates a stronger connection. Your muscle gets used to the movement. Like, for example, if you're playing a keyboard, and then that activity with time becomes easier and it becomes faster. Think about the first time you went to school. When you came back home, your parents had to hold your hand to teach you how to write. And with time, you began holding the pencil. You got mastery of holding the pencil, drawing out the letters. And by the time you're in primary school, it was something you could do in your sleep. You got used to, your hands got used to. But over the years, you found out that your handwriting was not legible. There are people who have grown, with very terrible handwriting that are not even legible. And does that make perfect? That doesn't give them a perfect handwriting in the sense of perfection, but they can write. Writing has become easier because they've learned it and they do it by rote. Now, when we look at life in general, we do not want to practice new habits because it's difficult. I was thinking about that when I started acquiring my new language or my third language because I was born speaking French and I just, that was the first language I went and I took to school. But when I came to Ecuador and I started practicing how to speak Spanish, I noticed that it was difficult at the beginning. But over time, I began to make less and less and less mistakes. The fact of the matter is that by practicing Spanish on a daily basis, I have not become perfect, even though I've been speaking it for over 5 years now, but I have progressed. Progressed in the sense that I have made mistakes and I have learned from those mistakes. Therefore, my Spanish has become better. I am more fluent. I am more understood by the people who hear me. But does that mean I can understand everybody who speaks Spanish? No, that's because I am not born speaking Spanish. I wasn't born speaking Spanish. I am not a native speaker of Spanish language, okay? And so I think for the rest of my life, I will be learning every day, practicing Spanish. And that's just because when it comes to languages, there are different dialects, there are different intonations, there are different accents. For example, in the capital, in the city, the commercial city of Guayaquil, where I live, you have Spanish speakers of different parts of Ecuador, different parts of Latin America. So I am more exposed to the Spanish spoken, but primarily in this section of the country and in this part of the continent. And so it goes to apply at work or with relationships, where you're exposed to one sort of relationship, and at work you have another relationship, at school you have different relationship, and you practice how to develop those relationships because you're dealing with different circumstances, different people, different end goals of those relationships. For example, when you go to work, Your goal is to achieve um, something tangible for the reason, which is the reason why you were employed in the first place for that particular firm. When you are married, the goal in that marriage relationship is to cohabit better with your partner. And when you have children, is to, I don't know what parents do, okay, it's to make them better human beings when they grow, but it doesn't make you perfect. I like to use the example of um, a keyboard student, someone who learns how to play the keyboard, where they first of all start with the fingers and they can just press a note, and then you progress to chords, and then you progress to more complex chords. With time, it's just automatic. They can hear you, and before you finish the first song, the first thing is that they're able to pick up your key. And by the time you get to the chorus of the song, they're able to pick up the chords for the song. And by the time you're halfway in the song, they play everything perfectly because they have practiced. Does that make them perfect? I would say it has made them expert. They have progressed to the place where it doesn't take them long to play music, And in life is the same thing, so that at the end of the day, if they should stop playing the keyboard, you will find out that with time they will lose that skill because they have stopped practicing. Why am I sharing this story with you? For many of us, we came into 2026 with a lot of ambitious statements. We're going to lose 10 pounds. We're going to learn a new language. We're going to pursue that degree. We're going to do that course. We're going to do something. And the first year of the month is gone. And we have not even taken that first step towards whatever goal or ambitions that we had set for ourselves at the beginning of the year. The simple thing is that we did not practice. We had it here, we dreamt about it, we planned it, but we don't execute. Execution is practice. Okay, bringing your dreams to reality is practice. So for example, you want to be a chef but you don't cook. How are you going to be that chef? Because you're afraid of making mistakes. You're afraid that that cake is not going to come out nicely. Have you seen Master Chef? If you've watched the program, even one episode of Master Chef, you know that those people who come on that program are culinary experts in their own small corners of the world where they came for the competition. These are graduates of cooking schools, graduates of maybe food science, I don't know, but they have studied cooking and gastronomy to a very, very extensive level, to the point where they could come and perform under high tension, high pressure, to make, amazing dishes in the space of 1 hour. I think most times they give them 60 minutes, and yet there are accidents that happen in the kitchen. What I'm trying to say is that if you don't take the first step to practice, you will never make progress. If you don't take that first step to speak, like I tell my language students, hello, Antonio Curados, how are you? What I always tell my students who learn English with me, I say, if you do not speak, you're not going to know what you know, okay? If you don't make that first mistake in language learning, you're not going to ever speak English language. I see a lot of people when they learn, they write, but when you say how are you, then they freeze. That's because we don't practice how to speak. We don't practice how to listen. We don't practice how to jog. If your journey is your goal is to lose weight or to get fitter, you know you don't practice and then you don't make progress. So the goal of this video is to encourage you. I'll give you another personal example. Last year, when I started my fitness goal journey, I stopped calling it um, weight loss journey, because at the end of the day, I didn't lose weight, but I made a lot of progress because I learned the proper form of exercising. I learned that because I am not yet an advanced level, I couldn't go at the same intensity or at the same pace as the instructor. And so I learned how to go at my pace in order not to injure my body. I learned how to do the right form in order not to injure my body. And in doing so, I began to discover the weak parts of my body, the side that was stronger, the side that was weaker, and learned how to adjust it. Over time, I began